Kura Tula Shtu Me Napajam. Says Krishna, who has appeared before me, he is at one and the same time the cause of all causes, that singularity from whom everything comes, but he is also a person. And as a person, he relishes interpersonal relationships. That's what it means to be a person. It means not to be in a vacuum, not to cut yourself off from others. Far from that, Krishna is the opposite. Krishna is intimately related with each and every one of us. He has taken up his residence in your heart. But even though he's equally disposed, he's present within the hearts of all living entities across the board, irregardless of their gender, their race, their religion, their species, their philosophy. He's always with them, never abandons them. Like the friendly bird within a tree. He accompanies the individual bird in the tree. He just sits there passively as the overseer, the proprietor, the permitter. However, his innermost desire is that enjoying bird, the individual living being, give up trying to enjoy the sweet and sour fruits of the tree, which is compared to this material body, and then turn to Krishna for advice and guidance, at which point both birds will fly out of the tree of condition, prison-like material life, go back to home, back to God. So that's why Krishna is a friend of all living beings, but for those who render service to him, those who style themselves as devotees, who see themselves as nothing more than instruments of the Lord, servants of the Lord has special affection. And that's why he's called Arjuna Sakha, the intimate friend of Arjuna. In order to protect the community of devotees from the persecutions of the non-devotees, Krishna has appeared on the earth with his friend Arjuna, and he's using Arjuna as his instrument to cut down all of the unwanted weeds, you might say, in the form of kings who overburden the earth with untruthfulness, ambition, envy, jealousy, and greed. So Bhishma has done his role. He's run his race. He's crossed the finish line, almost. He has some advice to give the succeeding generations headed up by Yudhishthira. But as far as his active role in the goings on, the politics of the day, that's finished. He's lying at his bed of arrows. Now, his only business is to fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. When we're in the womb of our parents, it is said that sometimes we get an idea that there is a God and that we're here to serve him. But once we are pushed out of the womb, people chuck us under the chin, and they call us a certain name and think of us as belonging to a certain family, along with come certain duties and obligations. We forget who we are in the bigger picture, and we become diverted. We become distracted by family, friends, country, this body, and the obligations that come with it. Well, Bhishma, at least he's coming back to that at the end of his life. He's keeping the main thing, to always remember Krishna, Tajmad Sarvashu Kalashu, Ma Manushmara Yudhyacha. Krishna says to Arjuna, you have to fight, yes, but there are so many people fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There's more than 4 million soldiers fighting. But what I ask you to do, more important than fighting, is Ma Manushmara Yudhyacha, Maya Pata Manobhara Mam Evashasya Samsaya. Think of me, fight for me. Don't fight for any other motive or any other reason. Fight because I'm asking you to fight. Fight as an instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tajma Tvam Utishta Yashola Vashvajit Vashat from Bhagjadevarjan. Employ, wield your enemies to the best, wield your weapons to the best of your ability against your enemies. And if you do this according to my direction, I will bestow upon you all the power that you need to cross over this dangerous ocean of the Kurukshetra war safely with you and your brothers on the other side. And having finished his mission, Bhishma is lying about to part his life on the bed of arrows. talking about the beauty of Krishna, which is present before him. And it's not that just Bhisma is enamored with Krishna's beauty. Even demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and others who attended the great Rajasuya sacrifice of Maharaj Yudhishthira, it is said that after seeing the bodily features of Krishna present at that Rajasuya sacrifice, everybody came to the same conclusion, with a few exceptions like Sisupal. But the vast majority, 99.9% of the attendees at the Rajasuya sacrifice, and they were all the kings and the sages, the cream of the world's population at that day, every single one of them, whether they were yogis or ascetics or Vedic scholars or priests, or whether they were demigods, they all contemplated that Krishna was the ultimate picture of beauty. They suspected that the creator of the universe, whose name is Lord Brahma, and who churned out 8,400,000 types of bodies in correspondence to the different psychological mentalities of the living beings. We all, most of us, trace our entrance into this material world from a previous creation. And at the end of the last manifestation, when everything came crashing down, we were interrupted in our plan-making business. But when the next creation comes about by Lord Brahma, our current Lord Brahma, we again awaken, we're again manifest from the body of Vishnu, where we lay dormant during the period of non-manifestation, and we begin where we left off. Isn't it that the last thought in your mind at night is often the first thought in the morning? Similarly, what it was we were absorbed in, the ambitions, the goals, desires that we were pursuing at the end of the last creation, we recall those by the grace of the Lord in the current creation, and we resume our pursuit of those. So there are 8,400,000 species of life engineered by Lord Brahma, the creator. And yet, those who are present at the Rajasuya sacrifice suspected that this creation, this manifestation of Krishna's form, was beyond even the ability, even beyond the dexterity of Lord Brahma to create it. Nobody had ever seen a form like this within the 8,400,000 species of life. Krishna's beauty was quite simply and categorically not generated from any combination of material elements. It is said that the most beautiful things in this material world are the blue lotus flower, the full moon in the sky, and I would also add to that the male peacock with his comb feathers, his indigo chest, and beautiful tail feathers. So the blue lotus flower, the full moon in the sky, and the peacock. These are the most beautiful things in this material world. And yet the demigods certified that the bodily form of Krishna surpassed the most beautiful things of which Brahma was capable of creating. They concluded that it was simply not within the power of Lord Brahma to have created the transcendental beauty of Krishna. So that means that no one, in fact, is the creator of Krishna. Krishna's body is not created. He does manifest a created body, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as the Virata Rupa, the universal form. That created body, which is one with the material universe, the heads of the higher planets and the demigods, the shoulders of the middle planets, and so on and so forth. The hairs on the body of the Lord are like the forests, and it goes on and on. Different comparisons are made between the universal form of the Lord and this material creation. He does manifest a created body from these material elements to give materialistic people who cannot conceive of anything beyond matter, anything as subtle and sublime as spirit, but he wants to give them some aspect of himself to meditate upon, to get out of their ego-ness, to realize there is a bigger presence, a bigger power to whom they are subordinate, to take those first baby steps on the path of devotional service. So there's a created form called the Virata Rupa. But the original form is not created. Is beyond the power of Brahma, the creator of the universe, to create that form. That form, which everyone saw in the Rajasuya sacrifice, that form which Bhishma was seen before him, that form which was the intimate friend of Arjuna, is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matam Sarva Pravartite. Not only is it not created through the combination of material elements, but it is in fact the place from which both matter and spirit come. Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Everything is generated from me. Everything emanates from me. Everything comes. Mata Sarvam Pravartite. There is nothing apart from that which emanates and originates in me. Buddha Bhava Samani. Those who are really wise, they worship me with all of their heart and engage in that worship of the ultimate, beautiful, lovable form. Devotees become without any material desires. Krishna, Bhakti, Nishkama Taiva Shanka. Being totally head over heels in love, taken, stolen, captive, kidnapped. Shmanan, Bangi, Turya, Prichanam, Sachivishanam, Vamsina, Shtaram, Kushanam, Ujaram, Tandakanam, Govinda, Kyam, Haritanam, Isha, Keshu, Turpanate, Maprekshashash, Tabariri, Sake, Bandu, Sange, Sirangam. It is said tongue in cheek, if you're attracted to the forms of your family, friends, and country, then the last thing you want to do is wander out at night in the area of the Yamuna River, because there's the chance that they're standing on the bank of the Yamuna River being washed by the light of the full moon. There will be that cowherd boy standing in threefold bending form with his flute to his lips, Shmeran Bangi Triyaparchitam, and a smile on his face. And if you happen to see that boy under those conditions, everything that you hold dear, everything that you called attractive up to that point, you will now find pales in comparison to the beauty of Krishna. Your consciousness will be stolen. Krishna is so often compared to a thief. He steals away your affection. He steals away your attraction. He steals away your consciousness. You're never going to be the same after having had a glimpse of the beauty of Krishna. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Varochanena Santa Sadhaiva Vidaya Shubhilokyati. Says the qualification for seeing Krishna is two. One, you have to love Krishna. You're not going to be able to discern transcendental, sublime, spiritual form of Krishna without an approach of love. No challenge, no envy is going to enable you to penetrate the veil of illusion with which Krishna conceals himself. Only through loving devotional service does Krishna agree to remove the veil. Krishna is revealed to those whose eyes are anointed with salve of love. And that's the first qualification. What you have to do is you have to awaken your dormant love of Krishna. And the second thing is Krishna himself has to agree to give you the eyes by which he can be discerned. And if those two conditions are met, Santa Sadaiva Vidaya Shubhilokyanti, once you see Krishna, you never see anything else. You see Krishna, and then you see him once in his original form, and then you see everything. You see that everything is Krishna. Vasudeva Sarvmitni Samahatma Sudurlabha. There's nothing but Krishna or the diffusion of his multifarious potencies. Ekadesha Stitoshna Nir Jochna Vishananam Parasha Brahmanashtatam Tatetam Akalam Jaga. Just as a fire is situated in one place, and yet its energies in terms of heat and light are spread a far distance away. The heat and light are themselves, in one sense, non-different from the fire. They're different, and they're also non-different. When we're 30 feet away, feeling the warmth of the heat, reading our book by the light of the fire, we say, well, that fire feels good. It's not actually the fire, the original fire, that would ever feel good, but it's the energies of the fire in form of light and heat. So we acknowledge that the energetic and the energies are non-different in one source. Once you've seen Krishna, Santa Sadaya Viridaya Shubhi, you'll never again see anything but Krishna. You'll no longer see differentiated forms in this material world. You'll see that this world is simply a world of names. We've given labels, we've categorized things in various ways, which mislead us, which delude us into thinking there are fragmental elements to this material world that merit separate service, separate study, separate commitments. When you've seen Krishna through the eyes and by contacting those who are serving Krishna in full devotional service, then you cease to see the fragments, the differentiations in this material world. And at that point, just like a plant or seed will dry up, will die, dry up, and wither away if it doesn't get water. Similarly, your spiritual energy realizes its original nature, which is to selflessly serve Krishna. You are spirit. You don't need anything in this material world. There's nothing that the eternal spirit soul needs out of this material world. Soul needs only to connect in loving devotional service with Krishna. If you make that connection, then all material desires go away. Bhakti Parishanava Bharaktana Nyachacham. It says the nature of bhakti, it's like eating a good meal. The more you eat, the more you chew, the more you digest, the less you feel attraction for the food itself. So the test of advancement in devotional service, test that you're actually becoming more and more Krishna consciousness, is that progressively you lose interest in material eating, sleeping, mating, defending, name, fame, adoration. Krishna Bhakti Niskama Taiva Shanka. Wherever you see devotees of Lord Krishna, their material appetites, ambitions, and desires are on the wane. They're atrophying. They're drying up for lack of nutrition, for lack of interest, you might say. Nishkama Taiva Shanta. Devotees have only one concern. It's how to put a smile on the face of Krishna. Other than that, nothing's going to worry them. Nothing's going to bother them. Nothing's going to upset them. On the other hand, there are all other categories of men who think that in order to be happy, there are certain conditions that have to be met. They're either called bhuktis, muktis, siddhis, or kamis. Bhukti, they want material sense gratification. They want the association of the opposite sex. They want yogi mystic powers, or they want liberation. So because they have wants, they have desires, and because they're missing the all attractive form of Krishna in their lives, they're always disturbed. Sakale asanta. They're never peaceful. They can never know the peace that the devotee does, but they're always disturbed because there are always conditions. They're thinking that certain conditions have to be met, and then I'll be happy. And that sets themselves up for frustration because conditions are constantly changing. Over and above that, we're not material. So there's no material arrangement which will satisfy the eternal spirit soul. So the kamis and the bhuktis are fruitive workers who desire material enjoyment. The jnanis are those who desire liberation, to become one with the Lord. The yogis desire to enjoy on the level of the Lord. And therefore, each and every category of men is classified as lusty. They want something. And because of their wants, they'll never be peaceful. The peace formula Krishna describes to Arjuna in the 5th chapter, 29th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktaram yagatapasham. Krishna is to be satisfied in all sacrifices, whatever we do, whatever work, whatever profit we make. It should be offered to Krishna. Yad karosh yad. It should be put on the altar. Sarvaloka maheshwaram. Why? Because We have no property. We can't claim ownership to anything in this material world. It is Krishna who created it, and Krishna is the enjoyer. Whatever we produce in our world of factories and manufacturing and technology, it should be recognized that Krishna is the owner. Krishna is the original person who provided the raw materials, which we then manufacture. But if you're working in a factory in which someone else supplied the raw materials, you don't have a right to enjoy or to claim ownership over the profits of that factory. You have to recognize that whatever profits that factory makes, they go to the owner. They go to that person who originally capitalized that factory. So Krishna is, having created everything, being the owner, he should be given the first right of enjoyment. And then if we give everything to Krishna, will we be beggars? Will we be homeless? Will we be starving? Will Krishna take everything and leave us nothing, as people in this material world are prone to do? No. Krishna assures us that it is in your absolute best interests to offer everything to Krishna. Every day we offer to Krishna nice grains and fruits and vegetables and dairy products. I've been offering to Krishna before I take it every day for 52 years. And look at me. I could probably lose about 15 pounds. Krishna has not starved me. He has not left me without residence. Our temple here in Spanish Fork is the most beautiful building in South Utah County. It's the most opulent building in South Utah County. Krishna's given us another beautiful building in Salt Lake City, and who knows what the future holds. And when you serve Krishna, you do the best service for yourself, like watering the root of the tree. So Krishna assures you that if you offer him the results of your work, if you acknowledge him as the owner and proprietor, then you yourself will be enriched. You yourself, in the process of serving Krishna, will taste the fruits of freedom, of unconditional life, of peace in your life, individually and collectively. Surinam Savrgyatma Mam Sundriti. The actual translation of this verse is, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerity, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, such a person attains peace from all the pangs of material misery. Everybody claims to be anxious for peace in this material world. The United Nations gather regularly in New York to try and chalk out the best plan for peace. Problem is, they don't know what the peace formula is. That's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. There's a 3-pronged program for peace. Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the owner, and Krishna is the friend of all living beings. Everything should be offered in transcendental service to the Lord, because he is the owner and proprietor of all planets and all demigods within this material world. Natasha Karanam Chavidite Natat Samas Chavashish Farashi Shakti Shabhavaka Balagayanam. Natasha Karanam. There is no one greater or equal to Krishna. Natat Samas Chavadakashtate Parashi Shakta Vibraya Shuryate. How is it that Krishna stands as the supreme? It is because his emanated potencies pervade and support and control every single atom in the creation. There's nowhere he's not present. There's nothing he's not aware of, and there's nothing he cannot do. His omnipotency springs from the fact that he is everywhere present as the Paramatma in his super soul feature. And when we miss this, when we divert ourselves to the Lord's energy rather than to the Lord himself, we become imprisoned. We like to think that we're the lords of all that we survey. But as soon as we have that mentality that this is mine, and these are my children, and this is my house, and this is my country, we begin to think in terms of I and mine. We get under illusion. We have a limited perspective. That mentality of wanting to be the master is what imprisons us. The master mentality is what enslaves us. We fail to recognize that we are under the laws of material nature, and those laws act all the more stringently when we ignore the Supreme CEO, Personality of God. Even in the state, there are laws, and those laws dictate that when you drive your car, you drive on the right side of the road. When everybody drives on the right side of the road, you can get where you're going very easily and very safely. But when you ignore the laws and venture over into the left side of the road, what happens is the laws act on you far more stringently than they do on the general populace. As soon as you transgress the law or disobey the law, or you may appear before the judge and say, well, I didn't know, but ignorance is no excuse. The laws are made for the harmonious social intercourse of society. So anytime you create a disturbance by ignoring or disobeying the laws, then those laws for you become even more stringent than they were in the first place. So that's why as soon as we present ourselves as master, when in fact the master is Krishna, we step outside of the universal laws of harmony. And rather than making life more comfortable, rather than being free, rather than having the peace that we say we want, the laws of material nature act even more stringently and even more restrictively. So in the name of lording over, in the name of being masters, we become more and more miserable. We become more and more imprisoned. We become more and more entangled, more and more dominated. We're already dominated. But when we agree to be dominated, when we agree to be sons and daughters of the Supreme Lord, when we agree to be the recipients of his kindness and his love and his concern, and we agree to accept his power and direction in our lives, the more we agree to be servants, the less imprisoned, the less entangled, the less bound up we are. So in this material world, when we speak of master, we think of freedom. And when we speak of servant, we think of lack of freedom. But in the spiritual world, it's exactly the opposite. When you talk about being master, that's when your freedom is taken away. And the more you try to be a master, the less freedom you actually have. But the more you style yourself as a servant of the supreme proprietor and enjoyer and well-wishing friend, then that is actually the position of freedom. Actually, there's only one entity who is totally free, avigna sarat, and that is Krishna. However, by virtue of associating with Krishna and serving Krishna, his devotees also come free. Namam karmani limpati name karma phalaspriyam. Krishna is not bound by the results of his actions, and because his devotees act as Krishna's instrument, neither are they bound by the results of their actions as well. Take Arjuna. He was responsible for killing thousands and thousands of soldiers. He made thousands of wives, widows. He made thousands of children, orphans. Normally, that would be very, very heavy karma indeed. But before the battle, Krishna assures Arjuna, Kontiya pratijanihi name bhakta pranasati. If you act as my instrument, you will not be responsible for the karma. If you're the stick in somebody's hand hitting a criminal, the stick is not responsible for hitting the criminal. The person who wields the stick is responsible. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you just be my stick. Don't do it for any personal motives or for any personal gain, personal glory, personal position. Arjuna has already made it clear he's not interested in any of that. He was willing to walk off the battlefield and by default give the kingdom to Ram. It was only because Krishna asked Arjuna to fight as his instrument and not for any personal reason that Arjuna agreed to go ahead and do it. And the result was that Arjuna, although killing thousands of soldiers, accrued not even one little sliver, not even one dust particle, not one drop of karma. Why? Because Krishna protected him. He was protected by the order of Krishna. Kaunteya pritijanihi name bhakti pranasati. Krishna not only promises Arjuna protection, but remember, Krishna and Arjuna are eternal friends. They've been together forever. Krishna has gotten Arjuna to where he is at this point in life. Krishna has never before let Arjuna down, and he's not going to let him down in the future. So not only does Krishna assure Arjuna of immunity from negative reactions, but he also asks Arjuna, Arjuna, you tell the people boldly, you tell the people based on your experience, lifetime after lifetime, whether or not I'm telling the truth. You give your testimony. I have declared that my devotee never perishes now. You've been my devotee. You've been the most intimate of my devotees since time immemorial. Now you tell people what your experience has been. Am I lying or am I telling the truth? So Krishna gives this assurance to Arjuna, and through Arjuna, he gives it to all of mankind, all of mankind. This becomes the background for the devotee. Materialistic people look to their family for support, for security. They look to their job for security. They look to their co-workers. They look to their business or to their career as security. They look to the government for security. But devotees look, their background, what they lean on is only Krishna. And Krishna is all good, all powerful. And when you have Krishna watching your back, why would you then aspire for any other shelter, for any other support, for any other provider? You go to work, you raise your family, you do your duty as a denizen of the state, but you don't look to any of those for provision, for support. You look only to Krishna. Less intelligent people see only immediate causes. Devotees who are far-seeing, who have a broad perspective, they see the remote cause as being Krishna. So they don't divide themselves, they don't fragment themselves, they live integrated, they live wholesome lives. Whole means they don't see things going in 20 different directions at once. They see only one person in the background, one provider, one Lord, one friend. So you'll find that wherever the devotees, they have no hankering to possess either material or spiritual assets. The materialistic karmis, they want things. They want material things, houses and gadgets and gizmos, transportation. Jnanis and yogis are at a little higher level. They don't want gross material possessions, recognizing the entanglement of those, the obligations to spend all of your time paying the bills and making your credit card, keeping your credit card out of debt, paying the interest and all that. They don't want to waste their time in that. So the Jnanis and yogis aspire for spiritual assets. But the devotees only want to serve the Lord irrespective of where that service takes place. There are no conditions on that service. If Krishna sends them, brings them back home to the spiritual world to continue their service, fine and dandy. If Krishna plunges them into a hellish condition and Krishna deems that they can do more service, they can restore more fallen souls in a hellish condition, then the devotees are only too happy to comply with that. We see this work out in the life of Chitraketu. Chitraketu laughed in appreciation at Lord Shiva's self-control. Parvati, the most beautiful female amongst all the demigods, was sitting on Lord Shiva's lap, and he was expounding some philosophical points to her. And as Chitraketu flew overhead in his aerial plane and saw this scene, he laughed in total appreciation and awe of Lord Shiva. But Parvati misunderstood his laugh and took it as derisory. So she cursed Chitraketu that he would take birth as a demon in his next life. Chitraketu mildly accepted the curse. Even though he had intended no offense, he apologized to Parvati, accepting, assuming the blame on himself. He expressed himself only too happy. He didn't see the cause of his taking birth in a demoniac family as Parvati. So therefore, he wasn't angry or resentful towards her. He saw that Parvati was only acting in a way that the Lord wanted her to act, that the Lord had his own reasons for Chitraketu taking his next birth as a demon. And so he was only too happy to see the instruction of the Lord through the curse of Parvati. Not only did he not say anything bitter or resentful to Parvati, but he thanked her and he glorified her, and he asked her forgiveness for what she thought was his offense. Now, Lord Shiva said in a subtle way that although Parvati is the most beautiful woman in the material creation, when a woman wants a good husband or a husband wants a good wife, they worship Uma or Parvati or Gauri. She's white, she's very beautiful, she's insurpassable in terms of beauty. Lord Shiva says, Parvati, the most distinct thing about you is your beauty. But this forgiveness, this tolerance, this mildness of this devotee, Chitraketu, has defeated the glory of your beauty. So what Lord Shiva is saying here when he's joking with his wife, and of course, no one else could say such a thing to Parvati, who's also Durga, the personification of material nature, he's basically talking about the power of the devotees, that because of their power of forgiveness, their power of desirelessness, you need to be careful not to underestimate them, not to overreact at the way they act, not to assume you know what they're thinking. That can be a very dangerous point. Vaishnava Kriya Muda Vigna Jadam. It's very hard to understand a devotee. Don't jump to conclusions with devotees. By telling Parvati that her beauty was defeated by the qualities of Chitraketu, he was warning her not to go around making a habit of cursing devotees, because that's going to bounce back on you. Chitraketu did not say anything to Parvati by way of personal retaliation, but the Lord doesn't take that lying down. When someone insults another devotee of the Lord takes it upon himself to retaliate. And that means that you get in seriously hot water. My guess is that there was no retaliation in this case because Parvati is the wife of Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva, who is the greatest devotee of all. It was her position as the consort of the greatest devotee that probably protected her from Krishna's retaliation. Lord Shiva makes no bones in telling his wife that Chitraketu has defeated you. He's defeated you. He's defeated your power to curse him. You wanted to curse him to make him suffer. And yet not only is he not suffering, but he has absorbed that curse. He still has a smile on his face. He's accepted that what you imposed upon him is actually the divine will of the Lord. And he's got a positive attitude. Narayana parasarve nakutasham shagavavagare apitu yatavarshanam. Devotees of the Lord are so mild and so undemanding that for the sake of the Lord, they'll go to hell to preach. If the Lord wants him to go to heaven, well and good. But if the Lord wants him to go to hell to preach, if he sees that he can do more good in hell than in heaven, they're only too happy to subordinate their own personal happiness and comfort and assume difficulty, challenges, and negative circumstances if somehow or other in all of that they can go to the next level of their service to the Lord. This is the ultimate power. This is the level of ultimate freedom that the Lord, in the face of such uninterrupted, unselfish, unmitigated devotional service, the Lord becomes the servant of such empowered devotees. That's going to be our message for today. And I think probably tomorrow we'll just talk a little bit more about the glorious activities of Chitraketu in his next birth. as Vritasura. There's some wonderful quotes from Vritasura. Again, showing the power that devotees have over the Lord through their loving attitude. That's about it for today, Transcendental Tuesday. How did you like your trip to the beach today? I'm looking out the window. It's all white, snowy, cold out there. And yet, you know, we just been to the beach here. How glorious is this culture of bhakti, a culture of devotional service, which goes back thousands and thousands of years. Its focus, our worshipful Lord, is unlimited qualities and pastimes, unlimited devotees. There's unlimited literature. Just the very vastness of Krishna consciousness gives you goosebumps, causes the hair on the back of your head to rise. So thanks for being part of our beach trip this morning. Brent, Rakesh, Manasaganga, Jean, Gary, Dandavat Pranams, Jay from Phoenix, Jean, by Bobby, and of course, our old buddy, not so old, Rob, here on Zoom with me. Do you have some nuggets for us, Rob?
There's a few today. So Krishna's beauty is ultimate. Nothing can compare to it.
Nice.
You need the salve of love to see Krishna above.
Mm.
The trick is to be the stick.
That's kind of that could only be understood by those who have listened to this class. That's a little cryptic, but I'll post it. Yeah, get people thinking, you know, or listening.
That's the trick.
That's the trick. The trick is the stick. The trick is to be the stick. So those three then?
Yes.
Good job. Excellent job. Thank you very much.
Hare
And thanks to all of you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.